Good morning, Lucky Lefty Podcast. Left will be along soon. We're brought to you by ONORA Whiskey at NoraWhiskey.com. That premium American whiskey, ONORAWhiskey.com. And if you drink, by all means, make sure you do so responsibly. I see that, man, chat is already litty. I'm going to talk about some things today. Make sure that you go to the YouTube page. The poll question of the day is up. How many wins will Notre Dame end up with at the end of the season? 10, 9, 8, 7. Go there right now. We'll get to some of the results later in the show. It's right there on the YouTube page. All right. Subscribe, a thumbs up, smash it for us, notification bell. The Lucky Lefty Podcast, man. And then we're on CFB Nation, presented by Twisted Tea. Hey. Yo, sorry for the mess behind me, man. I just looked this single view, as you guys can see, over my left shoulder here. Yeah, I went out this morning and got me some Captain Crunch berries, man. I might have that for lunch. Some Captain Crunch berries. Also had a great phone call from my wife, who is a nurse, and she texted me, and man, I wish Left was on because this is fantastic. My wife says, let me pull it up. This is hilarious, man. I'm preparing for the show. I look at my phone, and yeah, it is a great cereal. It'll tear the roof of your mouth up, but it's great tasting. She said, I'm working with a nurse today whose son went to Notre Dame and plays for the Steelers. And then she says his name is Miles Boykin. I'm like, word? She said, yeah. She loves Notre Dame. And when I told her that you do a show with Malik, she was like, are they doing the show right now? Can I call in? And of course, this was like a couple hours ago. So that just shows you, man, the Notre Dame family and world is small, but yet and still fervent and just full of love, man. Just full of love. So if she wants them to come on the show one day, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Bless you, Deborah Thomas, for the work you put in. Absolutely. One of the most underrated um, jobs you could ever do that we have, which is servicing others. And we have Veterans Day coming up. And if I can interest you in a book, I would tell you to go and purchase Invisible Generals. Invisible Generals. It's a great story about two men in the armed forces who really their accomplishments and what they brought not only to the military but to our world shouldn't be and can't be overlooked, and in advance to all of our veterans out there and to our current servicemen and women, um, we greatly appreciate you, everything you've done and everything you continue to do from the Lucky Lefty Podcast. So, yo, check this out. CFP committee and board meeting today. The expansion takes place next year. We talked about that, how it might impact Notre Dame. 12 teams. The original format was 6 and 6, with 6 coming from the Power 5 schools with their conference champions, and then 6 at large. Well, the Pac-12 no longer exists. So now it is going to be 5-7. And it goes to some very interesting things that Jack Swarbrick said on Wake Up the F Echoes on yesterday. That I really, I just want to have a conversation with you guys. Is that all right? You know, your comments, I'm about to go and put your comments up and really have a conversation with you guys. As Jack Swarbrick said, he feels more confident in something today than he did when he hired Marcus Freeman. We'll get to that. But as far as the connection to the playoff and expansion, the Southern teams in connection with the playoffs allowed Northern teams, or they will be allowing Northern teams, to change locations for their playoff games. So that means Notre Dame would not have to play their game in Notre Dame Stadium. They could relocate to Lucas Oil. They could relocate to another dome stadium in California with a significant fan base and alumni base out there. They have that option via the agreement with the college fall committee. I thought that was very interesting, but I thought it was very interesting that Jack Swarbrick was like, "Yeah, we're playing the game in South Bend." So my question to the fan base is, depending upon the weather in that situation, would you prefer for Notre Dame to move the game, or would you always like Notre Dame to play the playoff at Notre Dame Stadium? And see, I have a reference point. I have a reference point. We grow up in Chicago, and you hear all this stuff about, as a kid, like bear weather, bear weather, elements. And then the San Francisco Niners walked in with Jerry Rice and Joe Montana on a day with -2-degree wind chill and put up 40 points against that Bears defense in Bear weather. And it's still a problem today at Soldier Field, which is the worst playing surface in all of professional football, by the way. The elements are not the biggest advantage. The biggest advantage that you should have should always be your team, your preparation, your coaches. So I'm not one that's stuck with the game having to be at Notre Dame Stadium. I'm not. If I have a 5-star quarterback, and this is the funny thing, because all of us right now are frustrated with the offense, frustrated with the play calling, frustrated with the offensive coordinator. But if I have a 5-star quarterback, if CJ Carr turns out to be a dude, and we make it to the playoffs and have a home game, and the weather is going to be 30-mile-per-hour winds, 10 degrees below, wind chill. Why am I sticking to holding the game at Notre Dame Stadium when I have the option of Lucas Oil in the same state? I don't want to limit CJ Carr. I don't want the product on that day to be absolutely horrible. Bears fans, look, do you remember the Fog Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles? You remember that? where you literally couldn't even watch the game on TV. You couldn't see the ball. Bears fans know what I'm talking about. See, I'm not stuck with staying in Notre Dame Stadium, right? Because we're sitting here asking for the Notre Dame offense to step into the future, evolve, pass more, right? Go get some receivers. Okay. So 3 years from now, you have that dude at quarterback, but you have conditions in South Bend, Indiana that are horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. Do you still want to play that game at Notre Dame Stadium? See, because tradition, all that, no. Give my players the best chance to win. I don't want my quarterback throwing into a 30-mile-per-hour wind. I don't. I don't. And I understand, as long like if it's 30 degrees, 40 degrees, and just a little nippy, play the game at Notre Dame Stadium. Lucas Oil would be available on a Saturday. I'm pretty sure that none of these games are going to be played on Sunday. None of these games are going to be played on Sunday. And once again, has nothing to do with both teams having to play in it. I don't want a terrible product. It's a boring game. 30-mile-per-hour winds, cold as what? We're going to run the ball. We're going to see the ball ran 40 times when we got 3-4 really good receivers and a dude at quarterback. That's not benefiting us. Now, I'm basing this is based upon what Notre Dame fans have been asking for offensively. Now, if we're going to do what Notre Dame has done pretty much since Lou Holtz was the coach, which is just line up, run the ball, put all the pressure on the offensive line, then fine, play the game at Notre Dame Stadium. But based upon the shows we've done this week, Notre Dame fans don't want that. Notre Dame fans are tired of that. They're tired of that. So you get a Trevor Lawrence. You get a Deshaun Watson. You get a Joe Burrow. Perfect example. Let's say you're like 2019 LSU offensively, finally at Notre Dame. You want to put that group of wide receivers with 2 first-round wide receivers, 2 top 5 NFL wide receivers, and a franchise first-round pick, number 1 overall pick quarterback. You want to put them in those conditions and say go win the game when the conditions are literally taking the hands out of your best players? You're not throwing the ball 40 times with 20 to 30-mile-per-hour winds, wind chill of 10 below. I just found it interesting that he was really hardcore, not understanding what a December day. Man, I talked to players that came for that wonderful, much heralded Notre Dame banquet. Some of the stories about the weather trips, those recruiting trips. It's like, dude, December can be rough sometimes here in the Midwest. So, me personally, I would have a little bit more flexibility based upon my team. Not based upon ticket sales, Notre Dame Stadium, tradition, all that. My team. What is going to help my team perform better? That's it. And if there's ever a situation where moving the game indoors would help my team perform better, I'm taking it. Like there is, dude. This is 2023, and I'm glad. I'm glad to bring it up. That's why I used the reference point of the Bears, bro. And that 49ers team that walked in here and put up 40 points and smacked them around. Hey, dude. It goes back to what we said yesterday, right? Or what we asked. If you had to choose which you would want to change more, the players or the system, offensive system in Notre Dame, what would you choose? And immediately, most people in the chat were like, okay, yeah, give me more talented players. As much as I complain about the offensive coordinator, the play calling, Jared Parker, and other things, yeah, give me the elite players. Give me them first, right? Then you get the elite players, and you don't want to listen to them. Think about this in the micro, right? Not the micro, the macro. 'Cause this, honestly, this is one of Notre Dame's biggest problems, in my opinion. You have a long history of the administration basically ignoring the needs of the coaches and players. Let's say your players say, look, this weather, like, man, we would really prefer to play in a dome for this game. Are you going to look your players in the face and say, no, the game stays here because of tradition? This is Notre Dame Stadium. Who cares that the weather is terrible? Your head coach comes to you. Hey guys, um, it might be better for us if we play in Lucas Oil. No, the game stays here. It's tradition. It's Notre Dame Stadium. And I know that I'm creating something that might take place. I can't even put a percentage on it, but the percentage would be really small. I would say it's a 5 to 7% chance of a conversation taking place about relocating the championship, I mean, the playoff game. Very small. But if it happens, why in the world is everybody so darn staunch about no, play the game in Notre Dame Stadium? Why? Especially now, this is the kicker. This is the kicker. The Notre Dame fan base does nothing but complain about the fact that Notre Dame Stadium is no longer at home field advantage because people sell their tickets. That's been the biggest complaint. Going back to the 90s when Nebraska invaded. Going back to 2019 when Georgia invaded. Right? That's been the biggest complaint. When we have these big games, Notre Dame fans sell their tickets to the opponent's fan base, and the home field advantage is not the same. Well, if the home field advantage is not the same, then what's the big deal of going to Lucas Oil for a game? What's the big deal? Right? The hype music before kickoff, they can play that in Lucas Oil. The light show with the music at the start of the fourth quarter, they can do that at Lucas Oil. You want to scream and get loud, they can do that at Lucas Oil. But if you got a great quarterback and your offense is about the quarterback and wide receivers all of a sudden, you can't throw the ball 30 to 40 times in inclement weather. You can't. So what are you holding on to as a fan base when I've seen a lot of you on this show in the chat and other shows and social media openly admitting that the home field advantage at Notre Dame Stadium is not the same? And you've been saying it for years. Okay, it's an advantage against Pitt. Who cares? You can bring Pitt and Notre Dame to West Pullman Park on the south side of Chicago. That's not about it doesn't matter where they play. Pitt's awful. Notre Dame's a better team. Notre Dame's a better team. So as much as I love the passion of Jack Swarbrick, I really did. I love the passion and the way he spoke about it, the opportunity to have a playoff game on campus and to play it in front of fans and students. Uh, it's, I just find it interesting. So let's get to some of your comments. Yo, this is crazy. Let's go to Roger Black. Home field is not just about the fans, it's about pride. Yeah, you have to I I don't get the fullness of what you're trying to say. It's not about the fans, it's about pride. But aren't the fans part of the pride of the school? Like, I'm confused. Like, whose pride? The pride of the team? So the team's pride is based upon home field? Roger, I'm confused. Because I know you have a point, but I need you to kind of go into it a little bit more. Marvin Bell. Thank you, Marvin, for tapping in. Home field advantage is not the same for Notre Dame. People always sell their tickets to the ops. Marvin, I look, that's something I don't understand, you know. And let's be fair. At a playoff game, maybe the alumni will be more willing to travel, especially for the first one in the expansion era. Maybe those fans that sell their tickets will be more willing to go ahead during the holiday season and travel to South Bend for the experience, especially for the first couple of times. But in all honesty, eventually they see dollar signs in the regular season. Can you imagine how much money they're going to get for those tickets from opposing fans for a playoff game in South Bend? So that's a possibility. Doma Wop. You know what? I never thought about this, Doma Wop. Lucas Oil might years down the line might not even be the only option. Like he said, when the Bears finish their new indoor stadium in Arlington, they can play it there. Supposed to be state of the art. They're using the same consulting firm that built SoFi, and according to most reports, they'll be looking to host Final Fours and other big time events when it's finally completed. You know, um, Eric Ward, thank you for tapping in. We don't play good in bad weather. That will never be an advantage for us. Um, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I've watched Notre Dame over the years, and Notre Dame has had some games where it's been cold and they literally have just run through, physically just overpowered teams, controlled the line of scrimmage, and the running game was just dominant. So, um, and D Rock Ira says, stay firm with the playoff game at the Bend. Sean Paula says, play it indeed. Yeah, Notre Dame played very well um, in the snow. I don't think it was as cold and the wind. I mean, it got pretty bad towards the end, but Notre Dame was pretty dominant defensively and offensively versus Boston College. But once again, that's not a playoff team. That's Boston College. That's another thing. You know, for me to compare playing a playoff team, which is a pretty good team, I would assume, coming into South Bend and what they did to Boston College, I don't know if that's comparable. Uh, there hasn't been invasions in the MF era. Been to every big game. Well, the MF era is only a year and a half, and I was at the Ohio State game. So I don't think the Ohio State game, because Ohio State is in the Midwest, and I think Notre Ohio State fans have probably been to Notre Dame Stadium. You get Nebraska and Georgia from different conferences, especially any team from the South, that has a great traveling fan base. That's going to be more of a challenge because, it's a bigger event for them. So for them, it's like, yo, we're not going to have this opportunity to get to Notre Dame Stadium again. So, but now, what I'm seeing on message boards, social media, the way people are feeling about Marcus Freeman right now, you can't promise that that trend is going to continue. And it might not have been an invasion, but it was a pretty significant amount of Ohio State fans in the stadium this year. Maybe not as many as it was when Georgia was it, but it was significant. It was significant. I want to put some other things on the board as we get ready to close this up. Some else we told you about the 5-7 instead of the 6-6 with the dissolution of the Pac-12 is coming into play. We talked about the ability of North teams, depending upon the weather, being able to move. Because you have to understand, this is not just about. Um, I think the NFL had to deal with this in some way, form, or fashion. It was a different circumstance because this was around the Damar Hamlin situation, and I guess if Cincinnati and Buffalo, no, at Cincinnati, I forget somehow, some way, the AFC Championship game might have ended up in a neutral site. So let's say it's a blizzard in the Midwest. Now you have to, it's because it's bigger than, now we're talking about, yo, Notre Dame fans. Are they really going to be able to fly in? Are flights getting canceled? Are they going to be able to make it to the game? Are they going to be able to drive up to the game? Like, this is not just, oh, we're just having a game at Notre Dame Stadium. No. When weather becomes serious in the Midwest, and most of you know this, being residents of the Midwest, like when they shut down schools in Chicago, do you understand what it takes to shut down schools in Chicago? This is not the South, right? Where the first sight of precipitation, everything shuts down. Everything. Man, you have to get darn near 10 to 12 feet of snow in Chicago to shut schools down. It has to be ridiculous, which is why I said the conversation we're having, yo, it's a 5 to 7% chance this will even come to pass or have to be considered. But in the case that it is considered, don't force things just because of tradition. Do what's right, especially for the young men and your coaches. Do the smart thing. Do the smart thing, right? So, like I said, if it's a blizzard and it's impacting Indiana, heck, it might even impact Indianapolis. So now, yo, Lucas Oil might be out of the question. But how do we now do what do we do? How do we figure it out? I just think it's a very, very uh interesting situation to think about how it should be handled and all the logistics that will go into it. Because in my opinion, it's not just as simple as tradition, home field advantage. It's just not. It's not. There may come a time where the weather in the Midwest may force Notre Dame to do something that they may otherwise not want to do. Gino, my man, thank you for tapping in. When we play LSU for Reebok Pump Bowl presented by D Brown, that's funny. What are y'all's expectations? LSU's defense is not good, very vulnerable. Their defensive line doesn't rush the passer. Their defensive line doesn't stop the run. And their defensive backs are absolutely, it literally might be one of the defenses that Notre Dame's offense could actually get well against. Now, Thomas Harper, Clarence Lewis, if they play LSU, they better put on their big boy pants for that one. Because Cam Hart against Thomas, Benjamin Morrison against Neighbors, and I'm expecting them to probably put safety help over the top of Neighbors. I'm not forcing Benjamin Morrison to play him man to man all game. Neighbors is gonna get a little bit of heck. He got Marvin Harrison treatment, double team treatment from Alabama on Saturday. He would get the same type of treatment from me. I had Cam Hart. I feel like he can line up with Thomas and pretty much defend him. You know, Logan Diggs, their run game is okay. It's not dominant, and what scares me to death in a matchup with LSU is Jaden Daniels against our linebackers, right? Can Notre Dame come up with another? Can come up with another performance like the USC game? That is what will be required of them if they face LSU, because LSU has um, a quarterback that is, he's below Caleb Williams in my opinion, but he's very formidable, very formidable. And their wide receivers are better than USC's wide receivers. So, and that's not even close. That's not even close. Their wide receivers are better than USC's wide receivers. So it would be an interesting matchup. A matchup where surprisingly, if I were a betting man, LSU would probably be favored right now because of the quarterback. And I would probably take the over because I believe both teams will put up points. Why wouldn't Benjamin Morrison play in a bowl game? He's not eligible for the draft. I don't understand why Benjamin Morrison wouldn't play in a bowl game. He's not eligible for the draft. All right, Lucky Lefty podcast. Once again, go to YouTube. Poll question of the day is up. How many wins does Notre Dame end up with in 2023? How many wins does Notre Dame end up with in 2023? Even if Daniels doesn't play, Nussmeier is a dude from the pocket. So that would help out the linebackers of Notre Dame. If Neighbors doesn't play, but you ask me about a matchup, I'm not getting into all of those. This dude ain't going to play. That dude ain't going to play. This is the matchup of the rosters. This is how they stack up. All those hypotheticals, I'm not getting into that. All right, when we come back, we'll get into the poll question. Like I said, how many games is Notre Dame going to end up winning at the end of the season? We'll get into that, and then we're going to talk about another question I have concerning the offensive line. Lucky Lefty podcast. You already know we spin it different. Welcome back, Lucky Lefty podcast. ONORA boys in the building on CFB Nation that is presented by Twisted Tea. You guys go to YouTube, lock into the poll question of the day. That's up. How many wins will Notre Dame end up with in 2023? Your options are 10, 9, 8, 7. Some people are actually picking 7, which means they are out on the ledge ready to jump off the bridge because they don't think Notre Dame is going to win another game this year. Man, should be very interesting. I see Garland Doxy says 10-3. Papa Smurf says 9 games, 9 victories at the end of the year. Continue to vote over at YouTube. Subscribe, smash the like button. Let's get to it. I think this is going to be a hot button topic. Hot button topic. Can't wait to see what the chat says. I actually put the question up on our Twitter page at Lucky Lefty Pod. You can follow us on X/Twitter. Which game this year Did the Notre Dame offensive line not play well enough for Notre Dame to win the game? Which game this year or games did the Notre Dame offensive line not play well enough to win? I'm interested in hearing what you guys have to say. Why? There's been a whole bunch of excuses on these message boards about how some people feel like their biggest concern is the offensive line. I laughed. This is comical. This is comical. See, I want you guys to see this is where I didn't ask what game did the offensive line play horribly or bad or the interior was bad. The question is, what game did the offensive line play was so bad that Notre Dame did not have a chance to win the game? Because I'm about to pull up the comments because I'm looking at some of the comments and it's cap. It's cap because the question is not name a game where the offensive line played bad. That wasn't the question. The question is name a game where the play of the offensive line was not good enough for Notre Dame to win the game. And then I'm just going to point out some things that I feel like are just comical, absolutely comical to me, dude. Comical. I'm just letting you guys put your comments in before I start running them. Because this is, a conversation we're going to have for the next 20, 30 minutes. All right, so I'm going to start with my guy Marvin. Louisville. Our guy Marshall, Clemson. Coleman Smith, Louisville. Nathan Milton, Clemson with a question mark. Papa Smurf, Clemson. Deborah Thomas, Clemson. Jacob C., Louisville, Clemson, Duke. They won the game against Duke. Jacob. Time to grind. Louisville. Coleman Smith. Overall, Louisville. Clemson, the run game was good. Pass pro, no. Donnie Cruz, I see your comment. We'll get to it towards the end. Nathan Milton. This is interesting, Nathan. In that case, I don't think any game was so bad where the O-line lost the game. Deborah Thomas, who commented earlier, said none of them in that case. John Boylan. I'm sorry, John. Louisville. Luke. Louisville. Yeah, that was the game they started rotating guards and They told the players like right before the game. Yeah, yeah, that was Gino said, I'm going to lean Louisville too because it was just so disappointing. Oh man, don't remind me about that coaching. Uh Ani, that's not the question. See, stick to the question. What game did the O line play so bad? See, this is gonna play right into my art. What game did the O line play so bad that they did not give Notre Dame a chance to win the game? That's the question. You can't mention the Duke game because they won the game. They obviously did enough to give Notre Dame a chance to win the game. They won. Let's stick to the question. I want to stick to it. Okay, cool. Here we go. I've been consistent and I will continue to be consistent because there are reasons to why things happen in life. Cause and effect every day. Every day. So we don't have to get extra special in diagnosing football games as if, oh, well, this is because of this and this is because of that. Dude, that's life. I don't care what you're watching, it's cause and effect to everything. What you see happen, of course, there's a cause to it. I've talked to way too many professional football players, spoken to way too many Notre Dame players. We had Derek Curry on here, member of one of the most underrated defenses in Notre Dame history from that 2002 squad, who literally came on this show and said our DC was one of the worst play callers. He would call plays and we would literally be like, no, we ain't doing that as a unit. This is a Notre Dame player who openly admitted on this podcast, we're not running that. And it doesn't matter what he calls, our job is to make a play. Come up with an interception, come up with a run stop, come up with a sack. Make a play. That's it. And I spoke up for the Notre Dame fan base on Monday's show. And I said, yo, honestly, the dysfunction that's been in this program from top to bottom, with a lot of things that's happened, has kept this fan base in the same cycle of just finding a new way to place blame on this coach, that coach, this head coach, that head coach, this recruiting class, that recruiting class, this quarterback, that quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. That's all we do as a fan base. Just apply blame without just looking at the facts that's in front of us or the results that's in front of us and saying, yeah, hey, that's cause and effect. That's cause and effect. But at some point, elite teams find a way when everything's not perfect. This is where I go to the offensive line. Notre Dame fan base is the only fan base that expects their offensive line to be perfect. And it's not our fault. It's because that's what we've been given. We've been given a history of offensive line play. We've been given a history of head coaches leading up to big games, constantly talking about offensive line play and constantly saying, if we don't play perfect, if we don't play close to darn near perfect, we're not going to have a chance to win. That's what we've been fed. Literally, that's what we've been fed about Notre Dame. So unfairly, in every big game, we go into the game focused on the offensive line. And if the offensive line doesn't play a perfect game, they're a problem after every game. After every game. If they don't, I've never seen a unit in college football that has to play perfect every big game. Alabama's offensive line is trash this year. Trash. They're finding a way. They're finding a way. You know why? It would be real nice for Notre Dame as a program to give their offensive line a dude at quarterback that doesn't need everything to be perfect. That would be nice at some point in the next 3 to 5 years. Give us the quarterback that's behind a trash offensive line but can put up 42 on a Saturday night against LSU. I'll take that. He's not the greatest passer from the pocket, but of course, according to Pro Football Focus, he's one of the top 9 most efficient quarterbacks. He's sitting at number 8, according to Pro Football Focus. And he's a playmaker. Offensive line of Alabama is trash. Starting a true freshman at left tackle. Redshirt freshman at right tackle. Not bad. The Alabama offensive line is not better than the Notre Dame offensive line. They're not. As much as we can sit up here and complain about the offensive line of Notre Dame has a better offensive line than Alabama. Collectively. That might be hard to believe, but collectively. They do. They do. My second point. We have no empathy. Do you realize that the players that have been here 3 to 4 years on this offensive line have had 3 different coaches with 3 different styles of coaching, asking them to do 3 different things in 3 years? Absolutely no empathy. No one cares. No one cares. Here, we're going to sit, we're going to do this. Okay, here comes Harry Heastand. Now we're going to run duo. We're going to run straight ahead, duo power. Oh, Harry's gone. Oh, here comes Joe Rudolph. Oh, now we're changing everything up. We're changing everything up again. We're going to do this now. Sounds like pretty optimal conditions, right? 3 coaches in the position room. 3 different coaches in 3 years. But nobody talks about that. There's no empathy for the Notre Dame offensive line players having to do 3 different systems as an offensive line group. Nobody has empathy for that. No one. But we'll throw Sam Hartman some darn empathy. He ain't even a Notre Dame dude. Well, I feel bad for Sam Hartman to have to come in and play in this system. Dude got $1 million. I don't care about that dude. He ain't a dude. He was supposed to be a dude. He ain't a dude. But you will throw that dude a ton of sympathy and won't throw your own offensive line sympathy by having 3 different coaches with 3 different ideologies in 3 seasons. None at all. None. For them having the most pressure of any unit for any big-time program. None. None. There is championships. They were mid. Mid. The offensive lines have gotten progressively worse at Alabama as the system changed from ground and pound to the quarterbacks and them having the wide receivers they have. Notre Dame, at some point, can we take the pressure off the Notre Dame offensive line that's been there for over the last decade? Can you get them some playmakers so they don't have to be perfect? Get them some playmakers that can get open in 2 to 3 seconds. So they don't have to be perfect every freaking snap in order for Notre Dame to have a chance to win a game. Because that's the expectation that's been sown into the fan base. And it's unfair. It's unfair to the fan base. Yes, we should go into games expecting 40 points without the O-line having to be perfect. There's no other offensive line in big games for elite programs that has to be perfect. Notre Dame was darn near flawless as an offensive line against Ohio State. Guess what happened? They lost. It wasn't because of the offensive line. Can't put that on the offensive line. Biggest game of the year. They stepped up. Gave the quarterback, the wide receivers, and the running backs an opportunity to bring it home. What did they do? They didn't get it done. So what are we really talking about? Let's have an honest conversation. Because I'm going to be fair. The Louisville game, that was, but once again, when you hear that the coaches come to the players hours before the game, like we're going to switch things up. I know, we rotated during the week in practice, but there was no expectation that this was going to be the case in the game. I come to you right before the game and, okay, I know the expectation is this, but we're going to do this. What? Yes, I'm sure that messes with the mental of some guys. It probably messed with the confidence of some guys. I watch the same games y'all do, man. We know the internal offensive line was a question going all the way back. Let's be real. 3 years ago, Notre Dame had to start a true freshman at left tackle and went to the portal to get Kane Madden, who was awful. Awful. Louisville, I wholeheartedly, if I was going to say a game this year where they flat out didn't play good enough to give the team a chance to win, I'm right there with you, Notre Dame fans. We're going to have a fair conversation. I'm right there with you. Right there with you. Right there. I'm just telling you that there is no unit in this program that plays with the pressure that the Notre Dame offensive line plays with. No other unit in this program plays with that pressure week in, week out. Nobody. Nobody. And I was amazed at how many excuses we were willing to throw Sam Hartman based upon the system. And the offensive line has been in 3 different systems in the last 3 years. There's been no consistency for them to grow in the same system. None. So, yes, I can sit just like all of you, cause and effect. I saw Zeke Correll, and I forgot somebody put it up on the play. The right side of the line, Blake Fisher and those guys had caved in. Please go watch it. I think his name, I don't want to mispronounce his name, because then that'd be disrespectful. But I believe his name is Greg, and the last name is spelled Flammang, if I'm not mistaken. Greg, if somebody knows Greg, I don't want to mispronounce his name. I'm just trying to be professional. He put up a play where Zeke Correll literally got pushed back into Aldrich Estime, and Estime ended up getting tackled for like a 4-yard loss on the play. The play was supposed to go to the right, and the whole right side of the offensive line, right? Because everybody talks about Xavier Thomas. Go watch where Xavier Thomas, Blake Fisher kicked his butt on that play. Kicked his butt. The play was there. That's not Jared Parker. The play was there. Zeke Correll, you got to be better, my dude. You got to be better. Pat Coogan, he was all right on that play. You got to be better. Hey, Audrey Estime is a running back. Now, this is football, right? Because Audrey Estime is really good. But is he like elite, top of the top? Because a certain running back might have had the vision to see Zeke Correll getting pushed back and hit a quick jump cut to the right and got to where the play. And this is what I'm talking about. Notre Dame doesn't really have talent problems or huge issues on the O-line. We just need playmakers, man. I'm going to keep saying it. We need playmakers. People that can make plays when everything is not perfect, man. And as long as we keep going into these big games where everything has to be perfect, we're not going to come out well in those games. We're just not. You're asking what you're expecting too much and asking way too much of young men to win every battle against other really good football players. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't, man. So I agree with you guys in your game-by-game, play-by-play assessment of this guy isn't doing this. Coogan is struggling, put Strouf in. But when Strouf went in against Louisville, he really didn't play well. I agree. Blake Fisher was awful late in the Clemson game when Notre Dame really need him. You know who else was awful? Sam Hartman, who had Jordan Faison wide open and couldn't get the ball to him. Awful. That's not the system. That's a hell of a play call by Jared Parker in that situation. 10 failed. He failed. And it bothers me when people want to throw flowers and be more forgiving to a dude that's really not even, he's not a Notre Dame dude. He's a transplant. And you want to be forgiving to him, but you want to just hold the offensive line, hold their feet to the fire. When they've been in 3 different systems in 3 seasons, and you want to talk about this dude, he's a quarterback, man. What are you talking about? Find the open dude and be accurate. That's it. That's your job. That's it. Running backs, very good year. You know what, Coach McCullough? Man, you need to work with those dudes on pass protection. Because this isn't the first game. You can go back to the Navy game, the very first game. Running backs had the same issues. Running backs had the same issues against Navy. The same issues. Whiffing on blocks, on blitzes. Notre Dame fans, for the most part, man, for over a decade, the offensive line has given Notre Dame opportunities week in and week out to win football games. As I said before, I'm sure every game you can sit up here and point out to me, missed assignment, blown up. No one's perfect, man. No one's perfect. Then and stop expecting them to be perfect. That's what's been sold to us, right? And you know why? It's not enough difference makers at the key positions. That's it. So you know what? The O line has to set the tone. They got to do it for 4 quarters. That's just not realistic, man. Not today's game. I don't know an offensive line that exists. That's dude. They want us to accept. That's the same thing that Iowa football fans have to accept. Notre Dame fans, offensive line has to be perfect. Have to be perfect. Have to run the ball. Depend on our defense. And we're not doing that, man. This is Notre Dame. It's 2023. Notre Dame fan base deserves much more than that. Much more than that. And I'm sure this is going to be an extended conversation because I'm sure Left, who was dealing with some things with the network today, I'm sure Left is going to want to come on and talk about this tonight. So we're probably going to have a Lucky Lefty prime time show to expand upon both of the topics and some more stuff he wants to talk about. But that upset me. I have to be honest. The Notre Dame fans didn't up. Notre Dame fans being able to watch football games, critique players, and say, "Oh, this guy didn't play well. That guy didn't play well." That I have no problem with that. None. Speak the truth on these dudes. If a dude stunk it up in the 4th quarter or stunk it up in 2 series to end the game, speak the truth. If Zeke wasn't good, speak it. The Louisville game, which I agree with most of you guys, absolutely. Speak it. But when y'all start throwing this cat Sam Hartman more flowers than you throw an offensive line that has been the anchor for this program, the anchor for this program for going on 15 years, nah, I can't rock with that. I'm not going to rock with that. That dude walked away with $1 million. I don't care how this season turns out. He's still probably going to be a 3rd, 4th round pick in the NFL, the same as if he would have gone to the NFL last year and he got over $1 million to come play at Notre Dame and didn't hold up his end of the bargain. I don't feel bad for that dude. For what? For what? I believe, as Jack Swarbrick said on the Wake Up the Echo show, out of all my disappointments, you guys know me. I am very vocal about what I feel have been the shortcomings of one Marcus Freeman. But I'm still a huge Marcus Freeman fan. I still believe Marcus Freeman can get the job done because I trust Marcus Freeman to go find the dudes more than Brian Kelly. Not at the beginning of his tenure, when that's what he did, but towards the end, Brian Kelly didn't even care anymore. And the truth of the matter is, that might have been because he constantly had to wrestle with administration. Sometimes you just get tired, man. Sometimes you're in a relationship and it's a constant struggle. You're constantly battling. And sometimes you just throw your hands up and say, you know what? I'm out. I can't do this anymore. It shouldn't be this hard. I get it. I get it. And maybe that's what Brian Kelly was. Maybe that's where he was, Notre Dame fans. And that's fine. But I'm telling you, man, I believe in Marcus Freeman. Jack Swarbrick said it. I believe even more in Marcus Freeman's ability to bring Notre Dame a national championship today than the day I hired him. You know why you feel that way, Mr. Swarbrick? because you know what he's been put through and you know what he's had to deal with. Maybe that's why you feel even more confident in your decision today than you did the day you hired him. So let me ask you a question. Do you guys feel better about the quarterback room than you did Brian Kelly's last year? Yes or no? Yes or no? Do you feel better about the offensive line room than you did in Brian Kelly's last year? Yes or no? Despite all of their flaws, their bad games, their bad moments, do you feel better about the O-line and where it is right now under Joe Rudolph than what it was or where it was in Brian Kelly's last year? Do you let's see. Do you feel better? And Notre Dame has had productive running backs, but when you look at the depth and the talent coming in, do you feel better about the running back room than where it was Brian Kelly's last year? You feel better? Now, this one is going to be a battle. Take your time. Take your time thinking about this one. Do you feel better about the wide receiver room today than you did during Brian Kelly's last year? Now, honestly, that probably is the one that gives you pause. Because if you think about the freshmen and you trust them getting better, and you know you have the guys that you have coming in, it might make you say yes. But then if you want to just say based upon productivity, okay, I'll lean to the wide receivers. Kevin Austin, uh, who else? Kevin Austin, Deion Colzie was a freshman. Lorenzo Styles was a freshman that played very well for that half of the season. Went to the bowl game against Oklahoma State, had a big game. So, the wide receiver room back then might, even with, I think, Chancey Stuckey, with all the complaints that you can have about development and a lot of things that are going on with the wide receiver room right now, I think he's a better recruiter than the wide receiver coach then. I actually think he's a better coach, which is, man, if you are questioning Chancey Stuckey, he's better than that wide receiver coach. And it's not even close, in my opinion. Not even close. But I can understand someone choosing that that wide receiver room from a production standpoint over this current wide receiver room that really has a lot of promise from a production standpoint. They're more promise than actual production. So I can understand that. Do you feel better about the defensive line room right now than you did in the last year of Brian Kelly? Do you feel better about the defensive back room than you did at the end of Brian Kelly's regime? That's an easy yes. An easy yes, right? Do you feel better about the linebacker room in comparison? I mean, tackling at that position for Notre Dame pretty much spans both regimes. Marcus Freeman has recruited the position better. So now once we're talking about production versus promise, right? Because next year will be the first year we actually get to see Marcus Freeman's linebackers play, you know? So did I miss? Oh, the tight end room, right? Notre Dame played 5, 6 tight ends. Okay, you don't have a Michael Mayer. Mitchell Evans was playing really good, and shout out to him. Healthy return. Uh, man, we speak that the rehab is not as grueling, and you return just as good, if not better, after having successful surgery, Mitchell Evans. So, man, that's our prayer for you, Mitchell, as you go through your rehab and get back on the field. The tight end room, they go 5 deep, right? Mitchell Evans at the top. No Michael Mayer, but dude, tight end room is 5 deep with Jack Larson coming in. And heck, honestly, athletically, Cooper Flanagan looks like a tight end that safeties are going to have a problem keeping up with. It's like, yo, you have to feel it's either equal to what Brian Kelly had in the tight end room, or you're like, yeah, the tight end room is in better shape, right? I hit D-line, I hit linebackers, I hit defensive backs. Safety, you can question because, hey, Brian Kelly had Kyle Hamilton at the end, right? I mean, it is what it is, man. If you want to give the edge to the safety room, towards the end of the Kelly era versus what Marcus Freeman and Chris O'Leary have been able to do, that's fine. But I mean, Xavier Watts is an ascending dude. And we will watch him and his decision of whether or not he returns. So we've gone through everything, right? From a talent standpoint, Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman's second year is in a better position in most positional rooms than they were at the end of Brian Kelly's regime. That's it. And sometimes it's painful to if I could use Job from the Bible. It's very painful to have the patience of Job. Because patience is all this Notre Dame fan base has had. It's been 35 years. You almost feel like, God dog, how many more years are you going to ask us to be patient? Right, Notre Dame fans? How many more times are you going to ask me? It's almost like being in a relationship and the person keeps hurting you and they keep telling you, man, I'm going to change. I promise you, I'm going to change. It's going to be different. And they keep doing the same thing. At some point, it's like, all right, what am I to do? I know, Ryan. Ryan lost this. I know. They keep telling us we're going to change. Things are going to be different with this coach and that coach. And oh, man. Nathan Milton, you brought up the kicker and special teams. I would agree with you. I would give the edge, minus the Brian Mason year. If I asked this question last year, I probably give the edge to Brian Mason and the promise of what he was going to continue to do with special teams, even though the place kicker was still a problem last year. But heck, the place kicker puts on a show at the pro day, and now kicking 60-yarders to win games for the New Orleans Saints. Go figure. And to be honest, Schrader has really Schrader's has really been an underlying story because he really has corrected things and been really kind of consistent lately. He really has. He really has. Um, so like I said, more than likely, yeah, he's definitely Nathan. He's definitely stepped up late. More than likely, we're gonna have a prime time show because Left wants to talk to you guys. But um, I want to be clear. I don't have a problem with Notre Dame fans, content creators that cover Notre Dame, other shows, pointing out, yo, they need to step up, they need to be better. Heck yeah. We can do that at every position, every game. Every game. Players and coaches. But what I'm not about to do is sit here and let this fan base be over the top forgiving of 10 and make excuse after excuse based upon system and what wasn't fair and all of that crap. And the unit that has the most pressure every year in the program is given no empathy when they've been through 3 different ideologies and 3 different systems in 3 seasons. They literally went from straight ahead power duo, Harry Heastan, Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees is still running it at Alabama. Joe Rudolph, hey, interior guys, I know you've been working your tail off to get on the field, running duo, setting your feet, your foundation, being strong at the point of attack, getting pushed. But I'm asking you guys to be athletic and pull and run and pull and run. We're going to change it up, totally change, go in a different direction. We still expect perfection. That's what we expect. We expect perfection. I'm just saying, guys, we need to probably be just a little bit more forgiving because offensive lines, their job is just to give their skill guys opportunities to win games. And I'm pretty confident in saying Notre Dame and that offensive line group, 90% of the time, does a darn good job of giving Notre Dame an opportunity to win the game. You get unicorns in your program. Joe Alt is a unicorn. Joe Alt is a left tackle, is a heavy run system, heavy pass pro system, 50-50. Doesn't matter. He's great. He's going to be great. Can I tell you guys something? Blake Fisher's not that dude, man. He's not. The only reason he was starting at left tackle as a true freshman is because the recruiting wasn't good and they didn't have anybody else. And he was better than everybody else as a true freshman. Let that sink in. It's not Blake Fisher's fault. Let that sink in. He was better than everybody else in the room. That's not good. And they went to the transfer portal and got Kane Madden. That lets you know. Whew, if you think the interior of this offensive line has struggled, go look back at that season and talk to me about the interior of that offensive line and what Jack Cohn had to deal with. I'm just saying, man, it is a unit that even when we are critical of their play individually, which is perfectly fine, we need to sit back and understand, like, yo, for the most part, Hey man, they give it's like being Notre Dame's offensive line is not. Oh man, I want to make sure 'cause I was about to say something. Notre Dame's offensive line is the ace of this program. They're the ones that you send out there to the mound every fifth day. And every fifth day, it's like this dude is going to give us the best chance to win. And then you got your second starter that's a little bit less. I mean, if you got two aces on your squad, you're blessed. Notre Dame, it would be real nice to get a dude at quarterback. And now we cooking with grease because now we got two aces, right? Now we got two aces on our staff. 1 and 2. We got Schilling and Randy Johnson, baby. I can win a playoff series with that. I can win a World Series with that. I don't care who's 3, 4, and 5. You give me Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson, I can make something happen against the Yankees. Because all we have to do is win the games they pitch. And that's exactly what the Arizona Diamondbacks did. Forget the other games. Forget our closer being terrible. This is amazing, right? This is the Yankees in the prime when they were winning championships like crazy with the captain, Derek Jeter. And the Arizona Diamondbacks was like, yo, just give us two aces. That's it. Two aces. We'll just win the games they pitch. Who cares about our closer blowing games in the other games? Who cares? We're just going to win the games that our aces pitch. That's 4 games. We win the series. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Because that's basically, we don't have the money of the Yankees. There's no way we can put together the roster of the Yankees. We don't even have the minor league system of the Yankees. But you know what we can do? We got enough to get these two aces and get enough veterans that can produce. We can be a problem, right? Notre Dame fans, you're absolutely right. Our guy Roosevelt that watches us all the time says it constantly. You're never going to recruit like Alabama. You're never going to recruit like Georgia. You're just not. You're just not. But you know what you can do? You can go get a stud wide receiver. You can go get a stud quarterback. Your offensive line is already an ace. It's already the anchor of your program. They always give you a chance to win for the most part. Go get them some help. Go get them some help. And maybe you can win some big series or some big games when it matters. That's it. Just go get them some help. Fairly, we didn't think that Sam Hartman was tier 1, but I thought Sam Hartman was some sort of help. I will say that. I can't believe I said his name. I thought 10 was some form of help, even if he wasn't Drake May. I thought he was some form of help. And like you said, it didn't work out. But moving forward, like Jack Swarbrick said, I'm still confident in Marcus Freeman. And the reason I'm confident is the questions I just asked you guys. Position room by position room, is Notre Dame in better shape than they were at the end of the Brian Kelly regime? And most of you answered yes to the majority of those position rooms. That means progress is being made, people. And if you can just have a little patience, if you can have the patience of Job, you might have to suffer some things. You might have to go through some things. You might have to go through Marcus Freeman really trying to figure out his coaching staff and getting 3 or 4 recruiting classes under his belt. But guess what? If we had to suffer last year, this year, the pain of the Ohio State game, the embarrassment of Louisville, and the pain of last week in Death Valley against Clemson, and 2 years from now, Notre Dame is in a championship game or the semifinals or the playoffs, if this is the path that needs to be walked to get there, I'll suffer it. I'll take the suffering, Notre Dame fans. I'll take it. I don't like it, not one bit. I don't like it, not one bit. But I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. Because it's more than worth it. Lucky Lefty podcast. Let's see. TB12 hashtag Tom Brady. Love you stating be more forgiving. Speaking from a direct family member of a recent ND starter, the fan base is absolutely brutal to these kids. Hope for excellence, but don't destroy these kids. I mean, some people are brutal. I'm sure I've come on and got excited talking about certain things, but I'm going to be fair. Look, the majority of the time, I'm going to start with Marcus Freeman, especially before I get to the players. When it came to this Clemson game, I started with Marcus Freeman. I don't even have to talk about the players. Let me start with him first. And then we can break down everything else. Right? Heck, most Notre Dame fans know the darn game of football, regardless of whether or not you played it. Heck, you've watched enough football to graduate with a master's in Notre Dame football. So, or a doctorate. So knowing the game and having the blessing and the ability to talk Notre Dame football with you guys on a daily basis is absolutely amazing. One of the most knowledgeable fan bases. And when you just have, it's almost like great. Man, I'll give you a great example. Sports radio ratings, right? I was in the business for over a decade. Blessed to be in the business for over a decade. You have a great show, great radio show in Chicago, sports radio, your peak is maybe a 4.1 in Nielsen ratings. I'm like, that's considered like, yo, you're killing it. Go to New York as a sports show and pull a 4.1 and see how quickly you get fired. Go to Philly and pull a 4.1. Man, it's a different ball game. The sports fans up there, it's a different breed. And I think Chicago is a great sports town. But that's a different breed, man. It's a different breed. The knowledge of baseball fans in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area is like, it's on a whole nother level, man. Like the intricacies of the game and how they watch the game. It's, you just tip your cap. It's nothing to sit up there and feel like as a Chicago fan to be offended. Like we know the game too. It's a different level. Different level. Because what the average in the battles of sports stations in those areas from Philly all the way up to New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, if you're not doing double digits, you stink. They're up there pulling 10, 11, 12, 13 at peak. And sports radio in Chicago is like 4 at peak. It's a different ball game, man. And that's Notre Dame fans, to go back to your statement. Yeah, there are some people that are over the top, brutal, say some very ignorant things about these young men without understanding what they go through. You get idiots in all walks of life. But for the most part, the Notre Dame football fan base and fandom is a very knowledgeable, one of the most knowledgeable fan bases. Absolutely. And that's what makes creating content on a daily basis. That's what makes it fun and fantastic, is that you are dealing with a very knowledgeable fan base. So you have to come up with topics that are going to create, what we get in the chat every day, which is fantastic comments, opinions, thoughts. It is what it is. The fan base is, it is what it is. But I understand what you're saying. It is unfortunate, and I do think, sometimes it would help if we would be more understanding and more forgiving of these young men and what they do. My guy Donnie Cruz, I told you I would get back to this statement. You put up, why get Hartman, assistant quarterback, a really good ACC quarterback, in that system and not run the system? That would have been like getting Jalen Hurts and using the air raid, no option running plays. It was just plain old dumb. I've said this because some other people have said it before. I see you time to grind. You crazy, bro. Like Sox fans compared to Cubs fans. Hey, I'm not mad. Cubs made a great move getting counsel. Report came out today that they're in on Shohei Ohtani, and this is their winter of spending big money. I'm not mad at the Cubs or the Cubs fans. But to get back to what Donnie said, that's once again, dude, you have You have 80 to 100 young men that have worked their tails off all winter to play one system and in one system, not knowing that their offensive coordinator is about to bounce. And because Tommy Reese wasn't changing the system, he wasn't changing the system for Sam Hartman. Because when Tommy Reese left, Marcus Freeman, per Jared Parker's mouth, we're running the same system. Now, if you want to sit in here and say, sprinkle in some things that Sam Hartman has done previously to make it better or make the transition better, that's a fair argument. But you're not about to put 80 guys that have worked their tails off to study a playbook all off season and then ask them to totally change for one dude that ended up not being a dude. Because if he's a dude regardless of the system. He ain't a dude. 10 ain't a dude. He's not. No one is going to ask their entire offensive program to change playbooks 2 weeks before spring practices starts or 3 weeks before spring practice begins because of this dude that's coming in at quarterback. No one's doing that. That's not how football programs work. That's just not how it works. Like I said, in fairness, if you want to give him the ability to change plays at the line, if you want to give him the ability to do other things, run some slow mesh in certain situations, I'm all for that. But this big picture of Notre Dame should have just changed and scrapped everything. Once again, right? This is crazy. You had an offensive line, 3 different ideologies, 3 different teachings, and 3 different seasons with 3 different coaches. And because of Sam Hartman, now you guys got to learn this slow mesh blocking. So we're going to get the offensive line. Now it's something else here. This is something else you got to do, O-line. That would be unfair to those young men. It just would. It would be totally unfair to those young men. But for those of you that felt like, and I talked about this the other day, I can go down the line of people in that football program that are operating under unfair situations. Jared Parker's operating under unfair situation. Marcus Freeman is operating under an unfair situation. He is. Sam Hartman, unfortunately. Certain things are unfair. Guess what? That's life. Everything is not fair. Everything is not going to be perfect. It's not. But that's what, dude. We had to be perfect to get to the playoffs. This is like the weight that this program and the fan base has been sitting under and carrying, living moment by moment every week. Because we have to be perfect to get to the playoff. We have to have a schedule that's better than everybody else's just in case we lose a game so we can still have a shot. Just so much weight. Just good grief, man. Like even right now, Notre Dame's 20th in the CFP rankings and still would have an outside shot to get into the 12, field of 12. Still. The remaining games might not be the opponents, but you never know about the teams in front of you. And do they lose at the end of the season? You never know. It's an outside shot, but you still have a shot at 20 to get to the 12. You still have a shot. And finally, starting next year, we don't have to carry that weight week after week as a fan base, man. And maybe it helps us appreciate. Like Notre Dame is going into the matchup with Texas A&M at the beginning of next year with an extremely young and inexperienced squad in several areas. As a fan base, we have to know that. I'm still expecting them to win the game, though. I'm still going to be critical of guys that play well and don't play well. But I understand, like, yo, this is a team that's going to be looking for leadership from inexperienced and young players. And, yo, as a fan base, we're going to have to know that, and it might be easier to view that game not knowing that we have to win it. We have to be perfect. We can't have more than one loss. And, yo, we just want to make it to the dance and be a good team, good to great team by the time we get there at the end of the year. That's what it's about, especially next year with a young, inexperienced team. Because that team is probably going to be a much better team at the end of the season than they will be at the beginning of the season. And that's regardless of the result against Texas A&M. If they beat Texas A&M, I still think at the end of the season, of course, you have to take injuries into consideration, things of that nature. But all things being equal, I fully believe that the Notre Dame team in 2024 is going to be better at the end and hopefully in the playoffs than they will be when they face off against the Aggies. And yeah, get ready to get out of here, man. I went over. I told Left. I was like, yo, I'm just gonna do a quick hour, and then we'll come back tonight. You fans, man, it's your fault. It's your fault. You're so great, man. You pull it out of me. Came on here with the plan to do an hour, and you guys are so informed and smart, and just say really wonderful things in the chat that are thought provoking. It's your fault. Let me go. Let me go get some lunch. Yeah. Johnny Cruz, this is you know what? Thank you for saying this. He says, I think next year would be rough. Our whole defense and O-line would be different. Yeah, but that schedule is absolutely trash next year. Trash. The two toughest games will be Texas A&M, Florida State. We don't know who's quarterbacking in Florida State next year. They lose all of those transfers. They're a heavy senior laden team. They'll be young and inexperienced next year. So, as much as the name and what their team is doing this year, Keon Coleman's not going to be there next year. We don't have to worry about that dude. Johnny Wilson's not going to be there next year. We don't have to worry about that dude. So, we'll see if Florida State can run him back and be consistent because they haven't been able to do that. But that's probably viewed right now as the toughest game on the schedule, and we don't really know what they're going to have next year. But they've shown the ability to go to the portal and get dudes, though. I will say that. The year before was Jared Verse. They get the Fisk kid, a D tackle, over Notre Dame. They get Keon Coleman. So Florida State has shown the ability to go to the transfer portal and get dudes. So I expect nothing different. The big tight end that they had, tight end / H-back guy, I forget his name. They went and got him from the portal. So that's something that we'll watch, or that bears watching. But I'm glad you said that, because the type of team that you're talking about needs a schedule like 2024, because especially September and October, the schedule is so bad or so light that it gives the young players an opportunity to get better and to develop. Because, in my opinion, next year's team will be more talented than this year's team. Without question, they will be more talented. But that experience, like Jack Kaiser said, dude, there's so much that goes into this defense playing well. The talent, but they played together 2 years in this system, and some of the guys played together, for 3 years. That's a lot. That's locking in, along with Al Gold and along with the talent, the camaraderie and the cohesion. It's a lot that's going into making this Notre Dame defense really good, and that's something that's going to be challenging for Notre Dame. Defensive line, offensive line, defense. They're going to have really good players in the secondary once again next year. They'll still have some dudes, Boubacar Traore, Jason Onye, Gabriel Rubio. They'll still have some dudes, talent on the defensive line. They might go get another transfer in the defensive line. But, that cohesion, right? You can say a lot about the linebacker position, but they have played a lot of games together. SC, I don't know about SC, because that quarterback situation, once again, they'll have a young, inexperienced quarterback. The reports are that Jim Leonard is a candidate to replace Alex Grinch, who was let go earlier this week by USC. And then, heck, we don't even know if the head coach is going to be there next year, because he's going to have NFL interviews. Lincoln Riley's going to have interviews for the NFL. He is. He just flat out is. So, yeah, once again, new season, new questions. And like I always say, good teams all have questions, but the great ones find the answers. That's it. And that's why Marcus Freeman was so frustrated out of the Clemson game, because he keeps getting the same questions to things that he in his mind, it's like, yo, I thought we answered that. I thought we found the answer to that. And to see it not play out, it's been very frustrating. Ryan Loftus, I don't know. I see you talking about Tyson Ford. I don't know if you asked this question. I did see it earlier. Somebody asked what was up with Tyson Ford. Somebody said something about 5. I've been very critical of his coaching staff and their failure to develop Tobias Merriweather. They didn't do it for him as a freshman. They gave him no confidence. And then they just threw him into the starting position in spring and just thought that was going to inspire him to take a jump. That's not the way development works. It's not. You know, until he makes that jump, instill confidence, develop him, and then when he makes the jump, he'll make the jump. Let's see. But yeah, that's the same thing for SC. Like, I'm not about to sit up here and talk. First of all, Notre Dame recently, SC doesn't scare me. And when I said that after the Ohio State game, people are like, well, you talking about USC doesn't scare you. Hey, dude, USC didn't put any fear in my heart this year. None. None. I said that before the Ohio State game. That's why I said the Ohio State game was the most important game on the schedule. As far as changing the narrative about Notre Dame football. So SC just really doesn't scare me. They just don't. So yeah, so that's Tobias. And as far as Tyson Ford was asked to play inside, and it just didn't work. Right? He was asked to put on weight, play inside, and now I expect Tyson Ford to be at the strong side defensive end with Big Two next year. Right? Because I think they're trying to let him transition back to the outside, if I'm not mistaken. So now he was going through the process of changing his body. Now he has to change it back. So we'll see. We'll see. Lucky Lefty Podcast. Appreciate you guys. You already know we spin it different. YouTube. Subscribe, hit the thumbs up. We appreciate you, man. It's Lucky Lefty Podcast. You know what time it is.
Petticoat, 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 Junction.
It's time to get petty.
Oh, we did a good job executing.
Are you upset with something?
And fire up the Petticoat Junction train.
I just don't like you.
You don't?
No.
What is today's petty historic? Petty Junction.
Petty Junction, Petty Story today brought to you by ONORA Whiskey at ONORAWhiskey.com. That premium American whiskey at ONORAWhiskey.com. Man, I hate to do. Man, somebody needs to advise LeBron James to just hush. The disrespect towards the Miami Heat organization, that was one thing. Now this dude is randomly going at sports accounts on Twitter or X, talking about the last 2 minutes. Games in the NBA are not lost or won in the last 2 minutes. See, LeBron, I knew you were built differently. I knew you were built differently, bro. That's why you're so willing to let other people fail in the biggest moments of games under the guise of making the right basketball play. See, as a husband, I take the responsibility, and I take it very serious, of being the provider, being the spiritual spearhead, speaking things into the lives of my wife and daughter. I take the accountability and responsibility. I don't have to do that, but I do. And I take it very seriously. And I almost feel like if we go down, it's because of me. I don't sit here say we all have roles in the family and this, that, and the other. We do. We do. We have our own individual accounts. We have a joint account together. We have savings accounts, investments, property. Like we've gone through this. We've built 24 years with this beautiful woman that I met August 4th, 1991. But you know who stands at the top and answers to things when they need to be answered to? That's my responsibility. LeBron, you've never wanted that responsibility. Never. D Wade had to beg of you to operate in that responsibility. He said it many times in interviews, especially lately. Maybe that's why you didn't show up to his Hall of Fame induction, which is by far, man, something. Maybe it lined up with what was happening with his son. I have to double check that. But you not being at D Wade's Hall of Fame induction, but you've never wanted that. You've reluctantly walked in it because you found out that's the only way you can win championships. But that's not you. So when you say something like NBA games are not won and lost in the last 2 minutes, that's because you're not built like that. You're not a go-getter like that. You're not built like Magic, Bird, MJ. Just not a killer like that. And that's okay, because we all can't be the same. But just know, I just watched the game last week where literally Victor Wembanyama turned it on in the last 2 minutes in the fourth quarter and helped the Spurs come back from a 20-point deficit against the Phoenix Suns. They got their tails whooped for about 56 minutes. No, I'm sorry, 56. I'm thinking football. They got their butts whooped for about 45 minutes of that game. And then their best player decided to take over. And they came back and won. Would you look at that? Wow. Victor Wembanyama might be built a little bit better than you were as a youngster. Lucky Lefty podcast. We'll see you guys tonight. Prime time with Left. We appreciate you. Go get something to eat. Have a great day. But most of all, make sure you spend it different.